I came home from my fourth round of chemo and the house smelled like bleach. Not clean, aggressive, like someone had been scrubbing something out of the walls. I stood in the kitchen with my wig in my hand because the wig hurt my scalp, and I saw it on the counter. A Ziploc bag. Inside the bag was Walter's wedding ring, the one he had worn for 44 years, the one they cut off his finger at the hospital and put back on him at the funeral home. Written on the bag in black marker in my daughter-in-law's tidy little print was one word: Cell. I am Margaret. I am 68 years old. My husband Walter died 11 months ago. 6 weeks after his funeral, a doctor told me I had breast cancer. And the woman who had offered to stay with me during chemo, the woman my son had married, had spent that afternoon putting 44 years of my husband into garbage bags. What she did not know, because Walter and I had been very quiet about it, was that we had already prepared for a woman exactly like her. There was a clause. There was a notary. And there was a clock she could not see, already counting down. I want you to understand something before I start. I did not raise my voice that day. I did not cry in front of her. I waited until she was out of the room, and then I made one phone call. That phone call is the reason she does not own the lake cabin anymore, but I am getting ahead of myself. Walter and I were married 44 years. He proposed to me on a back porch in October, wearing a green cardigan that smelled like the cedar chest his mother kept it in. He died on a Tuesday. He had been folding laundry in our bedroom of all things, and he sat down on the edge of the bed and told me his arm felt strange. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was already gone. 6 weeks later, a doctor named Patel told me I had stage 2 breast cancer in my left side. He used the word aggressive. He used the word lucky. He said both in the same sentence, and I remember thinking that he had clearly never sat in a kitchen by himself and tried to remember how to make coffee for one. My son Tony called me the next day. Tony is 41. He is a kind man married to a woman who is not. His wife is Brittany, 36, real estate agent, always slightly tan in a way that did not match the season. And when Brittany wanted something from you, she had this habit. She would lower her voice, almost a whisper, like whatever cruel thing she was about to say was a secret she was sharing only with you. Tony said, "Mom, Brittany wants to come stay with you during your treatments. She wants to help. She is really stepping up here." I should have known then. I did know, honestly. But I was tired, and Walter was dead. And the idea of driving myself home from chemotherapy and unlocking the door to an empty house felt like a small thing I could let someone else carry. So I said yes. The first day of chemo, Brittany drove me. She held my purse in the waiting room. She brought me a smoothie afterward. She called Tony from the car, "Sweetheart, your mother is so brave," in that low voice of hers, and I almost believed her. The second day, she stayed at the house while I was at the clinic. When I came home, my kitchen junk drawer had been reorganized. I did not say anything. I told myself she was being helpful. I told myself the chemo was making me suspicious. The third day, 2 of Walter's fishing magazines were gone from the basket beside his recliner. I asked her about it. She said, "Oh, sweetheart, those were so dusty. I thought you would want a fresh start." A fresh start. He had been dead 11 months. I counted 4 things in her purse that morning when she set it on my counter. A label maker, a roll of black contractor bags, a folder with the Goodwill logo on it, and a brand new set of keys to a property I had not yet given her permission to enter. I did not say anything. You probably already know the kind of woman I mean, the kind who decides what your grief is supposed to look like before you have finished feeling it. The 4th day was the day I came home and smelled bleach. I walked through the kitchen first. That was when I saw the Ziploc bag on the counter, his ring, the word cell. I did not pick it up. I did not touch it. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom and I opened the closet door and the closet was empty. His flannel shirts were gone. His work boots were gone. The green cardigan he wore the night he proposed, the one with the small hole at the elbow where I had patched it twice, that was gone too. Brittany was sitting on the couch in the living room, scrolling on her phone. She looked up at me and smiled. Brittany said, "I know it feels fast, sweetheart, but the house was holding you back. The house needed to move on." I stood in the hallway with my wig in my hand, and I asked her one question. Where did the clothes go? She said, Goodwill. Tony and I dropped them off this afternoon. 2 carloads. I did not answer her. I walked past her into the kitchen, picked up the Ziploc bag with Walter's ring inside, and I put it in the pocket of my robe. Then I went into the guest bathroom, and I locked the door. And I will tell you what I did in that bathroom, but you have to wait 1 more minute, because what I did next is the thing that changed everything. I called my attorney. His name is Howard Klein. He had been Walter's lawyer for 30 years. I told him what had happened, every detail, in a voice so flat I did not recognize it as my own. Howard listened. When I was done, he was quiet for what felt like a full minute. Then Howard said, Margaret, do you remember the video? I said yes. He said, Are you sure you want to trigger it? I said yes. He said, I am driving to the courthouse in the morning. I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bathtub, and for the first time since Walter died, I smiled. Before I tell you what was on that video, I need you to stay with me for 1 second. If you have ever stood in your own kitchen and watched a stranger wearing your son's wedding ring tell you that your dead husband was clutter, you already understand what came next. You already know I was not going to scream. Screaming is what they expect. I had something quieter. Stay with me. I am almost there. 18 months before Walter died, the 2 of us sat down in Howard Klein's office and we recorded a video. We were both healthy that day. Walter wore his blue button-down. I wore the pearl earrings he gave me for our 30th. Howard recorded it on a small camera mounted on a tripod, and then he had us both sign documents that he notarized in front of 2 witnesses. The video said this: Walter and I owned everything jointly. Our house in town. A small lake cabin 2 hours north that had been in Walter's family since 1952. A modest brokerage account. Walter's pension. In the event that either of us died, the surviving spouse would inherit everything. That part was standard. But there was a clause. Howard had drafted it himself. Walter had asked for it. The clause said that if any family member, by blood or by marriage, attempted to remove, sell, donate, or destroy Walter's personal effects from the marital home within 5 years of his death, his half of all jointly held assets would pass immediately to a charitable trust in his name. Not to me, not to Tony, to a trust that funded a veterans fishing program he had loved for 30 years. Walter had said in that video, looking right into the camera, I have watched too many widows lose themselves to people who treat grief like a remodel. I will not have my Margaret pushed around by anyone wearing my last name. Howard had filed that clause. It was already notarized. It had been waiting for 18 months, and Brittany, sitting on my couch scrolling on her phone, did not know any of it. I came out of the bathroom and I made dinner. I made spaghetti, because that is what I always made on Wednesdays. Brittany ate 2 bites and said she was watching her carbs. She told me a long story about a kitchen remodel she was planning at, and I quote, the cabin. Our cabin. The one she did not own. The one she had apparently already redecorated. She said, Sweetheart, the wood paneling has got to go. It is so dated. I had a contractor up there last week. A contractor. Last week, while I was at Chemo. I did not say a word. I just watched her mouth move and I counted. 3 sentences into her speech, I knew she had rehearsed it in the car on the drive over. The same way she had rehearsed Sweetheart, your mother is so brave, on the day I started treatment. The next morning, Howard filed the trigger. I want to be clear about something. I did not have to do this. Howard told me I could let it go. I could ask her to leave, change the locks, and grieve in peace. But Walter had not put that clause in our will so I could be nice. He had put it there because he had watched his own mother get bulldozed by his brother's wife in 1987 and he had never forgotten it. 5 people in our family had stopped speaking to his mother by the end of that summer. Walter was the only one who kept calling her. He told me, more than once, that the worst thing you can do to a grieving woman is treat her like she is in the way. So I let Howard file it. The first thing that happened was a phone call to Tony from the trust's administrator. Tony called me that afternoon. He said, "Mom, what is going on? Some lawyer just told Brittany the cabin is not ours." I said, "Tony, sit down." I told him about the video. I told him about the clause. I told him that the moment Brittany had loaded the second carload of his father's clothes into her SUV and driven them to Goodwill, his father's half of everything had transferred out of our family. The cabin, half of the brokerage account, half of Walter's pension survivor benefits, which Howard had structured creatively. All of it. Gone. To a fishing program. Tony was quiet for a long time. The phone line just breathed. Then Tony said, "Mom, the cardigan too." I said, "The cardigan too." He started crying. I did not. I had done all my crying in the bathroom the night before, sitting on the edge of the tub with Walter's ring in my pocket. Brittany found out an hour later. I was not there. Howard told me about it afterward, because his paralegal had been on the call. Brittany had been at the cabin with her contractor when the registered letter arrived by courier. She had opened it standing in the kitchen she had already started gutting. Howard said she made a sound. He said it was small. He said it was the sound of a woman watching a check she had already spent stop existing. She lost the cabin in 90 days. The trust took possession. The contractor's invoice for the demo work she had already authorized, $11,000, came to her personally because she had signed the contract in her name without permission. The lake cabin was sold by the trust at auction 6 weeks later to a retired couple from Minnesota. I did not attend, but there is one more thing. The thing I have not told you yet. When Brittany came back to my house to pack her things, 3 days after the letter arrived, she stood in my kitchen and she tried it one more time. She lowered her voice, that whisper of hers, and she said, "Margaret, sweetheart, you have humiliated me. You have humiliated this family. Walter would be ashamed of you." I was sitting at the kitchen table. I had been waiting for her to say something exactly like that. I reached down into the bag at my feet, and I put 3 things on the table, one at a time. First, I put down a folder. Inside the folder was a printed transcript of the video Walter and I had recorded 18 months before he died. I slid it across the wood toward her. She did not pick it up. Second, I put down a photograph. A photograph of Walter, taken the morning he died, wearing the green cardigan. I had taken it myself from the doorway of our bedroom while he was folding laundry. He had no idea I took it. It was the last picture of him alive. She looked at the photograph and her mouth opened slightly. Third, I reached into the pocket of my sweater and I put down the Ziploc bag. His ring. The word "sell" still written across it in her own handwriting. I said, "Brittany, Walter is not ashamed of me." That was all I said. 5 words. She picked up her purse very slowly. The clasp made a small sound when she closed it. She did not say goodbye. She walked out of my kitchen and she did not come back. Tony moved in with me 2 weeks later. He brought 1 suitcase and his father's old fishing tackle box, which Brittany had not gotten to. He sleeps in the guest room down the hall. Most nights, after he thinks I am asleep, I can hear him crying very quietly through the wall. He tries not to let me hear. I let him. A man has to grieve his father, and he has to grieve the woman he thought he married, and those are 2 different funerals. My chemo ended in March. The scans were clean. Dr. Patel used the word lucky again, and this time I let him. The Goodwill called me in April. A volunteer there had recognized Walter's name written inside the collar of one of his flannel shirts. They had set it aside. I drove over, and I bought the shirt back for $4. I have it folded on the chair in our bedroom. The green cardigan never came home. I have made my peace with that. Somewhere in this town, someone is wearing it on a cold morning, and they have no idea that a man named Walter wore it on the porch of a house in October and asked a young woman if she would spend her life with him. She said yes. She is 68 now. She is sitting in her kitchen, and the house does not smell like bleach anymore. It smells like coffee. It smells like the coffee Walter taught her to make on a Sunday morning in 1981, when she could not get the ratio right, and he stood behind her and held her hand around the scoop, and he said, "Margaret, like this, slow. You have all the time in the world."